was my greatest Vincent Price impression. I'm so hurt. Hello and welcome to Lexitecture, a podcast about word origins and histories. My name is Ryan, and in each episode my friend Amy and I bring a new pair of words to share their stories with each other and you. You can find our past episodes and the occasional blog post on our website at lexitecture.com. Follow along with us on Twitter and Facebook at Lexitecture, and if you really like what we do, you can support the show at patreon.com/lexitecture. Today's episode, Ghost Engine. Should we do some podcasting?
We probably should do some podcasting, eh? Much as it's very delightful to just, chat about shit.
Well, exactly. Before we get started, 2 new Patreon sponsors. Woo!
Yay!
And we're going completely international from neither my continent nor your country or landmass. So, first I have... So, she's cool with it, but I'm gonna butcher her name because it's Icelandic. And so I'm gonna try my best. So I believe the way this works is the first Patreon sponsor we have to thank this time around is Sara Björk Sigurðardóttir. And I don't know if that actually worked.
I don't know if that's how you pronounce Sarah's name, but I am so excited that we have an Icelandic Patreon sponsor.
Yeah.
And I can't accurately express why that is. I stan Iceland.
Yeah.
I've
always wanted to go. At some point I will.
Always.
And also I love the matronymical naming thing.
Yes. Isn't it awesome?
It's the best. I guess it's not matronymical. I guess it's still patronymical, but it's awesome. Yeah, it's great. So, Sara,
also, I love
apologies.
when words with crazy, complicated spellings in English are rendered in other languages in ways that just make so much more sense. And spelling daughter, Dottir, of course. Yeah. Why am I mangling these GHUA nonsenses?
It's just, it's
so,
ridiculous.
Sara, for your awesomeness, firstly in being Icelandic, secondly in having a fantastic daughter's name,
yes,
and thirdly for being a Patreon sponsor, we salute you and are very grateful for your existence.
We do. And we're very jealous that we don't get to be part of your awesome Viking clapping ceremonies for your football team when they come home.
Oh, man.
Just so good.
Now, I have to say that the Icelandic clap was pinched from a Scottish football team.
Was it really?
And I'm actually going to Google this as I'm saying it because I feel like I might be about to malign.
Can you imagine if the day we got an Icelandic Patreon sponsor was the day we started a war between Iceland and Scotland?
This is just what I'm thinking. The Iceland, from the New York Times, 26th of June 2018.
Okay.
Iceland's chant is mighty, but it comes from Scotland.
Okay. I feel like that could be because it comes from Scotland, as opposed to but. I don't think you need to have that particular conjunction there.
Wait. I don't know if this is the only... Yeah, the thunderclap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thunderclap comes from, apparently, according to the New York Times, in 2014, the Icelandic team Stjarnan, again, pronunciation optional, was playing the Scottish team Motherwell in the Europa Cup. The Icelandic fans became enamoured of their opponent's clapping chant, which in this instance... segged smoothly into Motherwell's classic song Since I Was Young.
Neat.
So,
okay, that's
apparently
cool.
the Icelandic thunderclap, it's certainly, the World Cup in... Was it the World Cup or was it the Euros? Anyway, it became famous because of Iceland's... And let's face it, because Iceland had an absolutely awesome team that year.
Well, yeah.
But, it comes from Motherwell.
That's very cool. I think honestly, like, if I had to compile a list of countries whose football teams could believably pull that off, like Scotland, yeah, Iceland, obviously. I mean, I'm thinking the All Blacks could do it just because the All Blacks can do whatever the hell they want.
You don't know anything about football at all, do you, Ryan?
I don't really.
I mean, I'm not contradicting that. What I'm marveling at is that I know exactly what you mean, but I'm not really sure where you got that sort of instinct from, because like you genuinely don't know anything about football, do you?
Well, I mean, I don't know anything. I don't really know anything much about the state of various football clubs because I just don't get to see much of it.
I mean, it's no.
Have I said something profoundly stupid?
No, absolutely not. But I was just reflecting on the fact that, like, in the same way that I know absolutely nothing about ice hockey, like not even a thing.
Yeah.
It's just one of those moments whereby I suddenly realise that although we're friends and that we have a lot of things in common, and because of the whole capitalist globalist society that we live in, we have a lot of cultural touchstones in common. There are also things that neither of us fully understand because of the continents that we've lived on.
Yeah.
Basically. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patreon sponsor number 2.
Yay.
I might put in a drum roll sound effect here. I'm not sure. We're changing climates slightly because I believe this gentleman is from Spain, although he might just be from Europe somewhere else with a Spanish name. But thank you very much also to Fede, who has jumped on board
Fede.
and is throwing us some sweet, sweet Patreon cash, which is amazing. And yeah, and Spain, another place I know you guys went, another place I've never been and very much want to go. And
Spain's awesome.
Perhaps we'll do a Patreon tour at some point when such things are allowed in the after times.
The thing with Spain, the after times. The thing with Spain is that in Britain, certainly, a lot of the kind of British consciousness of what Spain is, like there are sort of nasty, stereotyped holiday resorts where everyone's English and sunburnt, and people wear sombreros and are obnoxious to all the Spaniards, and they get really, really drunk and try to chat up Spanish waiters, and all that kind of like culture around Spain. For a lot of people who've been on package holidays to Spain, which I myself have been on package holidays to Spain, it seems to me that there are large parts of the Spanish tourist industry that have sought to make Spanish holiday resorts as much like being in the UK as possible, but with sun.
Okay.
And that's not my jam. And if it's your jam, then that's totally fine. I get it. But that's not my jam.
No.
But when so the first time I went to Spain, I can tell you exactly when it was because of a not very funny at the time mishap involving an out-of-date passport that may or may not have belonged to me. And it was September 11th, 2002.
Oh, good.
Which was not an ideal day to be causing trouble in an airport.
Yeah, a grand day for international travel.
Shall we say.
Yeah,
okay. So I got to the airport to check in for my flight and discovered at that point that my passport was a few months out of date. And had to go make a mad crazy dash to the passport office, which just by coincidence happened to be in the right city, the city that we were flying from. And usually getting a passport is quite a lengthy affair, as you can imagine. And the absolute heroes at the Glasgow passport office put through a passport for me in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
It was incredible. And I got to have the shittiest passport photo in the world for the 5 years until I needed to renew it again, because I had been crying furiously for about 45 minutes before the photo was taken in the booth at the passport office while they frantically put things together.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the first time I'd ever gone on holiday with my now husband. And that was the first time that he said, "I'm never going anywhere with you ever again." But that holiday was a cheap package holiday to Spain, to a resort called Salou. And Salou if you wanted the experience of drinking in British-style pubs and getting smashed for a fortnight and doing karaoke and never going near a Spanish person, Salou is an excellent place to do that.
Okay.
But also, Salou has some super duper cool within walking distance or a short bus ride away. Like, we went to a town called Tarragona, which wasn't particularly mentioned in the guidebooks and in the kind of stuff. It was like, oh yeah, it's nearby, you can get the bus, whatever. And when we got there, we discovered that there was a massive Roman amphitheatre.
Oh.
Just like, just sitting there in the middle of town. And you could walk along the medieval wall all around Tarragona, and then you could visit the amphitheatre. And it's, I think that oftentimes people in Britain have an idea of what Spain might be or could be or is for their experience. But we found that Spain is hugely diverse, very interesting, incredibly friendly, even when you're an ignorant Brit who doesn't speak Spanish, and such good food and drink that you would,
nice.
Just such good food and drink.
Yeah, I want to go. So thanks, Sarah and Fede.
Sarah, Fede, I can't believe I had so much to say about, respectively, Spain and Iceland, when all I really wanted to say was, thank you, you're awesome.
Sarah, Fede, you guys are awesome.
We like you.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Do you want to take it away for this for the actual podcast?
Go on. Yeah. So very occasionally, I mean, we're not good at this whole topicality thing because we record our episodes, dear listener, when we're able to record our episodes, generally speaking. So sometimes that's weekly, and sometimes it doesn't work out like that, and sometimes one or both of us, usually me, has some sort of explosion and can't commit to a recording that week, and Ryan has to despair, and yeah, he's a good guy. Anyway, my point with all of this is that we don't often get the experience of saying, at this time of year, I want to talk about this word because it fits this time of year. But I thought, well, it's kind of almost sort of Halloween, and I want to talk about the word ghost.
Nice.
Firstly, because isn't it a funny looking word?
It is a funny looking word.
Ghost. Gah. It was probably the first GH word that I learned. And
yeah.
it feels and looks so odd to say ghost. And so I was a little bit curious about ghost.
Ghost.
I don't know if there's a name for this, but there are words that I always read in my head phonetically or like I'm saying ghost at the moment.
Yeah.
There are so many words that I do that to. Are you the same?
Yeah, there's a couple that there's a few that I do. I can't really read the word misled.
Misled.
Well, I always just pronounce it in my head, misled.
I remember learning misled because because of a book of poems that I had. This is such a stupid story. and the poem goes, I love you, my darling. I love you, almighty. I wish my pyjamas were next to your nightie. Don't be mistaken. Don't be misled. I mean on the clothesline and not in the bed. Right? So that was the poem in my book, except I just couldn't figure it out because don't be mistaken, don't be misled. I mean in the clothesline and not on the bed.
Just
doesn't make any rhyming sense. And it was one of these occasions in my reading life where I just sort of went, oh, that's weird. And for once in my whole life, I didn't open my mouth as wide as I possibly could and proceed to insert my foot quite thoroughly inside. I just sort of kept it to myself. And then at some point, years later, heard the word misled and had one of these almighty, moments. Yeah, so misled and ghost.
Yeah.
And autumn. I always say the n on the end of autumn.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are lots of words where I feel like that, where it doesn't make sense to my eyes or my brain that combination of letters should make that sound.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons why the word ghost was interesting to me. And so I decided to have a little look at ghost. And I discovered that for a very, very, very long time, that GH just didn't exist. So if you look at the etymology on OED, it says that it's Common West Germanic from Old English gast, G-A-S-T, also guest, G-A-E, like an ash, S-T.
Okay.
And all of these Old Frisian, Saxon, Dutch, Old High German, they're all G followed by a vowel.
Right.
And the OED has this to say about it. Although the word is known only in the West Germanic languages, in all of which it is found with substantially identical meaning, it appears to be of pre-Germanic formation. The sense of the pre-Germanic, now here's a pronunciation for you,
Okay.
Goizdo,
Oh.
that's Ghoizdo, interestingly with a GH, if the ordinary view of its etymological relations be correct, should be fury or anger. So I'm going to come back to that, but we have this sense that all of the Germanic languages have G followed by a vowel with some combination of vowel and ST going on. But that the pre-Germanic form appears to have this slightly odd, to my eyes anyway, GH formation. So the Old English form Geist, G-St, is constant in the Exeter book and occurs 49 times in the Hatton manuscript and 3 times in the Bodleian manuscript of Alfred's translation of Gregory's Pastoral Care. In other words, we're talking about a word that's incredibly old.
Yeah.
The OED first citation comes from around about the year 900.
Right.
And we see it pretty consistently. We have Old English, we have 1225, 1275, 1305, going all the way down through the centuries, up until 1879. You know, this is a word that's certainly been, it's been around for a long time. It's largely been unchanged, apart from that GH part. More on that in a minute. The OED defines it as the soul or spirit as the principle of life, also the ghost of life. And it says here, I like this, obsolete except in the phrase to give up the ghost. So having this sense of the ghost that one can give up being the sort of the essence of life, if you like, the thing that makes us alive.
Yeah.
Which fits in nicely with the notion of soul and spirit in terms of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So, Etym has this to say about it. It defines it as breath, good or bad spirit, angel, demon, person, man, human being. And in biblical use, soul, spirit, or life. It takes us through all of these Germanic similar G followed by some combination of vowels. And it is conjectured to be from a PIE root, Gheis, used in forming words involving the notions of excitement, amazement, or fear. Now, I found this very interesting because here we have this word that has pretty steadily throughout a number of centuries had this same idea. However, its etymology seems to come from a place that doesn't bear much resemblance to that. So I suppose there are 2 possible reasons for this. Maybe the etymology is wrong. It is postured that this PIE root gives us the word ghost, but that may not be the case because, you know, etymology is, I'm not going to say it's a crapshoot in terms of accuracy, but, you know, there are few things that we can say for absolute certain. And that's one of the things that's cool about it. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that, well, I wondered if it was one of these incredibly sexy, super duper, kind of obscure, strangey PIE cognates. So I wanted to have a bit more of a look at this PIE root. Annoyingly, it was one of the ones on Etym that doesn't have its own entry. So I went hunting for PIE in other places.
Right.
And I got myself to an etymological dictionary of the Proto-Indo-European language, which I believe is Pokorny. I always get the name wrong.
Yeah.
And it's you can find it online. You can find it online on the website of the Indo-European Language Association, if that's the sort of thing that interests you. It is an enormous document. It contains way more words than I can understand in the order that they've ordered them, certainly. But here is what this encyclopedia has to say, dictionary has to say about this root. So it's listed as GHEIS or GHEIZ or D. And the English meaning is given as confused or shocked. Now, this doesn't really hold much kind of similarity to the word ghost as we think of it. The white sheet, spirit, spiritual remains of a person who's died. But it does perhaps give us an idea of how you might react to seeing such a thing. So this notion of the kind of spirit that makes a person alive, whether it belongs to a body or not, it's certainly something you would find confusing or shocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we have all sorts of really, really cool, interesting cognates in various European languages that give us words that mean things like gruesome, shuddering, shaking together, the ghastliest, most hideous, fear, horror. We also get the sense of this word meaning to be angry with, or to be excited or aroused or aggrieved. And I absolutely loved this because my folk etymological let's make up a story bit of my brain immediately thought of ghost stories.
Yeah.
Which are not only told to, frighten people around campfires, if that's your jam. They are designed to provide that shocking, exciting, arousing feeling of safe fear, if you like.
Right, yeah.
But then we also have the notion of, sometimes ghosts are said to be angry, vengeful spirits.
Yeah.
So if ghost does indeed come from this pirate, meaning confused, shocked, but also later meaning angry or aroused or aggrieved, then we start to get ourselves a bit of an insight into how that set of words have kind of merged into what we now know and think about as ghost.
I love the chicken and egg question that brings up is like, is it was the sense of a lingering spirit being there for a reason, usually a negative one. Did that inform that other sort of secondary sense of aggrieved, they're on a vengeful mission, et cetera, or was it? Did it start to have that sense, and then that's when most ghost stories started to be focused on the mission of the ghost and why they're there and what vengeance they want to wreak and all the rest of the stuff?
Well, I can tell you, I certainly can answer that question. You're right, it's a cool one to ask. But I can tell you that there's an obsolete sense of the word ghost given in the OED, meaning a good spirit or an angel. And that is from circa 900, the same as our first sense of the soul or the spirit as the principle of life. So exactly when the evil spirit rocks up in the OED, it's about 100 years after that. Now, of course, when we're going back as far as this,
Yeah.
and given what we always say about written citations, certainly not given any particular accuracy in terms of when a word was first used. But I did find it very interesting that, around about the time that Bede was writing, a ghost could be both a good spirit and a vengeful spirit.
Yeah.
Which is interesting given that pirate and that sense of anger and sort of I was going to say disarray. I'm thinking of a poltergeist. Interestingly too, there is a pirate ghost, Ghost.
Really?
And I don't think ever in a million years you would guess what it means. But it's an interesting one in terms of considering that sort of large cultural construct of what we think about ghosts, particularly in a sort of a scary, spooky, Halloween-y sort of sense.
If it means anything to do with marshmallows, like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is actually from a pie root, I'm going to be so excited.
Oh, nothing I could say now would be as good as if it meant Proto-Indo-European marshmallow.
For marshmallows. Is there a Sanskrit word for marshmallows that lines up with ghosts somehow? Or like, please, just give
I
me
hope
something.
there's a Sanskrit word for marshmallow.
Where's our old church Slavonic crowds? One of them has to know what the OCS word for marshmallow is. Come on.
Well, OCS does come up in the pie entry for GHEIS.
Sweet.
Zaznoti, frighten.
Nice.
And it's so unpronounceable. Fright. OCS does get a little mention there. It was most amiss of me not to bring it up. In fact,
I'm sorry for derailing. Ghost. Pie root
however,
for ghost.
ghosty, GHOSTI, means stranger or guest.
Oh, okay.
So I
That's
mean,
very cool.
there isn't any sense whatsoever in either Pocorni or in the OED or on Etim Online or in any of the other places that I looked that this pie root gave us the word ghost. But I do like to consider the root that gives us a stranger, but especially an enemy, foe, opponent, a host or hostess, a guest friend, a stranger, used also to mean foreign. Or a master of the guest.
Come on.
Yeah, it seems so unfair that root doesn't give us this word.
Yeah.
But it would seem that, according to the actual rules of etymology, that is not the case. Damn it.
That's too bad.
However, ghost, whether it be noun or verb, because it was a verb as early as 1666. However, it was being used in the sense of giving up the ghost or dying.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't. I was interested to find too that the OED doesn't yet have ghost in terms of like internet ghosting, like internet dating.
Right.
The idea of just cutting off conversation and cutting off communication.
I was going to say, it's another example of where the past is so much more hardcore, because if you ghost today, it's like you leave a party without saying goodbye, whereas if you ghost in the 1700s, you are dead. So it's,
Yeah, so it's always interesting to consider whether or not words like that have made it yet into the OED.
Yeah.
I presume they're working on it. It'll get there
sure.
eventually. I was interested to find that ghost as a verb was so old. But whether you're verbing ghost or whether you're nouning ghost, and even though it doesn't mean a stranger or a guest, whether it makes you angry or frightened or shocked or confused, it's still a pretty cool thing to think about at this time of year.
It is.
As for the GH...
Yes.
So far as our material shows, says the OED, it first appears in Caxton, who was probably influenced by the Flemish geest, that's Geest. It remained rare until the middle of the 16th century and was not completely established before about 1590. So like so many words, why does ghost have a GH at the beginning? Just because some did decide it was a good idea.
Yeah, just somebody did it once and everyone's like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
That's very cool.
So yeah, ghosts are confusing and multifarious but yes, I will now give up on ghosts. I hope that was lots of information.
That was lots of information, and it's funny. That was a lot of fantastic information. I loved hearing about that. I'd never actually given much or any thought to what ghost means. My single biggest takeaway from you choosing the word ghost is that I should listen to my wife more often, because we were talking about, I was mentioned to her we're going to be recording soon. She's like, oh, well, what have you got? She knows me. So she was like, have you got a word yet? You're recording tomorrow. And
this is hilarious because I had a very similar conversation with my husband just about an hour ago.
So I was like, well, I got a couple that I'm sort of thinking about. I was telling her about it and stuff like that. And she was like, I don't know, Halloween's coming up. And, the episode will come out just after. But, it's around the 'tis the season, as they say, and stuff, you should use, I don't know, have you ever thought about what the word haunt means? And I was like, I should look up the word haunt. And then we were in the car at the time, and then we were like bringing supper home, and then we got home and had supper, and then it was like all the bedtime routine for the kids and stuff. And then when I came time to actually look stuff up, I completely forgot to look it up. And if I had looked it up, and if it had turned out to be a cool word, which I'm pretty sure it would have been, our episode today would have been ghost haunt or haunting ghost or something, because I would have looked up a really topical word as well and been awesome. And we could have looked so prepared, you know?
Ryan, that would have made me feel very, very unhappy about the fabric of the universe.
Well, that's true. Something would have been desperately
the
wrong.
Fundamental order of life would have been in some way disrupted.
Yeah. So as it is, I'll just introduce this word in kind of a spooky voice, because maybe that'll be topical. And my word today is engine.
Sorry. One more time, spooky voice.
Engine. So, yeah.
I am super excited to hear about Engine, but also that was awful, man.
It was, right? This is why I am an actor.
Like I'm not like, it would have been cool to learn about haunt. That would have been good, but at the same time, it would have deprived us all of the unbelievably horrific, spooky pronunciation of the word engine.
Right. See?
Yeah, we all needed that.
Everybody wins.
So, continue. Engine.
Engine, right. Okay, so this one I've sort of wondered about intermittently, but it's that level where I was like, huh, and then exactly zero effort beyond that to find out the answer to the question in my head. But the term, specifically with the term war engine or siege engine, which I'll grant you is not something that comes up very often, but when it does, like you're familiar with like the siege engine, like the big, either the towers with the battering rams or the towers with the ladders or the catapults, like to refer to those big ancient weapons of war.
Yeah, please don't miss the opportunity to use the word trebuchet.
Well, that's the Cadillac of siege engines.
The Cadillac of siege engines.
The preeminent thing thrower of its day.
Do you think that's how people talked about them? Like
so.
Next door neighbour chat. Have you seen Mr. Jones's thing thrower? Oh, it's nice.
Friggin' Belgians are coming. They've got the biggest thing thrower in Europe.
Don't piss off the Spanish. Their thing throwers are unparalleled.
Honestly. Plus, they're very stylish. And goodbye to Fede. So,
thanks, Fede.
Yeah.
It was John.
It's nice to be with you.
Back.
Goodbye.
We can change.
We can't change. So yeah, siege engine. And I was like, so engine, that doesn't make any sense, because when I think of engine, I think of mechanical thing. And so it's very anachronistic to what I think of when I think of engines. And so I wanted to start off this one with Smith, because Smith kind of gives a pretty good, so Smith is writing in the late 1800s in his Synonyms Discriminated, and he has an entry on engine, and it's lumped together with machine.
Oh, I am already excited by Smith engine. Does he use the word device?
I don't know that he uses the word device. I know that there's a couple instances of device in the OED, but here's what he says about machine. He says, a machine is a combination of bodies adapted to transmit force and apply it to the production of some specific work or effect. Engine is more commonly applied to machines of the more massive kind, which produce some difficult result by the employment of a high degree of power. Locomotive engines, for instance, are called, or locomotive machines, for instance, are called engines. And so that sense of a mechanical...
Once again, Smith gives us a meaning for a word that I didn't know was its meaning, but when you read it, it makes absolute sense that that's what it's always meant.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of the idea of producing power with a complicated thing with a bunch of stuff in it. Sorry for all the technical jargon again. The OED has citations for this basic definition from about 1538, which is already older than I would have thought.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it says, the OED says, a complicated machine with moving parts for producing a given physical effect, especially the conversion of power into motion. And that's the OED's citation, or the OED's sense that dates back to 1538. And they use like a water engine and some other instances. But 1538 is pretty early for something like that. The use of engine in the phrase siege engine or war engine goes back to, and this shocked me, 1380.
Awesome.
And yeah, when the OED gets it, the first citation in 1380 is the sense of a large machine or instrument used in warfare as a battering ram, catapult, etc. And that's within the larger sense of a machine, contraption, or mechanism. And I love the word contraption, so I wanted to have that in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that broader sense of a machine, contraption, or mechanism encompasses a whole bunch of different definitions that all roughly mean basically the same thing, but just in slightly different categories and applications and all the rest. But they're basically the same. But the word engine does not stop there. It is even older. It goes back to the very, very beginning of the 1300s in writing. But at this point, at this stage, it meant artfulness, cunning, trickery, or ingenuity. So,
Nice.
because my early Middle English understanding and pronunciation is dramatically subpar, I'll go with the 1393 citation is, the women were of great engine. And so it was a noun, it meant ingenuity, artfulness, cunning, and all the rest. Or it could be used with false or evil ahead of it, like false engine. And false engine meant basically ill intent or devious will, or, that kind of idea.
This is amazing.
So yeah, so if someone's advice was false engine, it was bad advice, and it was malevolent and malicious.
False engine.
Yeah, which is cool. So that was very cool to me. It just meant trickery and deceit and all the rest of the stuff. And then I started looking into where it actually comes from. And etymologically, the word comes from Latin ingenium, which the OED has quite a long list of things that means. So ingenium in Latin, or ingenium maybe, a natural disposition, temperament, inherent quality or character, natural inclination or desire, mental powers, natural abilities, talent, intellect, mind, cleverness, skill, ingenuity, clever device, or contrivance.
This is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful, because what that list makes me think of is that essentially an engine is a thing that does the thing it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
it's a thing that has a quality that's needed.
Yeah, and it is its own quality, and you can't have it because it is its.
Yeah.
And it is the thing. Its natural state is to be the thing that does the thing that it is supposed to do.
Be the thing that does the thing that's needed to be done. Yeah.
Again, we're basically mechanical engineers, you and I. So this might be flying over people's heads, but try to stay with us through all this techno babble.
I don't think the word thing has been used in so many ridiculously vague contexts in any other episode of this podcast.
It's true. Science.
Science.
The construction of the word, so that in prefix, meaning, you guessed it, in, and Latin, the Latin chunk of the word, the back half of the word, also known as the root, I guess, if we're going to suddenly switch to technical terms.
The back half of the word. I don't know, that works well for me too.
The back Latin chunk of the word is from a pi root, gene or gene, Gene, meaning to give birth or to beget.
Nice.
And it goes through various other paths to give us cognates like general, generic, genre, generation, genocide, generous, indigenous, germane, germinate, genuine, and genius. So ingenious and engine are basically sort of the same word, kind of, except one carried on that sort of natural inborn ability, and the other eventually went through the to become an enormous thing thrower or thing breaker, and then to the thing that makes a thing move around with us inside it.
They're all pretty ingenious, let's face it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Engine.
There's a great joke that I saw a little while ago about an engineer dies, and due to some processing mistake, he goes to hell. And he gets there, and it's hot, and there are flames and torture and all the rest of it. And being an engineer, he thinks, well, it's awful hot in here. I'll have to design something to sort that out. So he sets himself to work, and he manages to lower the temperature. He manages to make the torture much safer and much less, tortury. And generally, he just improves the entire, the entire atmosphere of hell. It just gets so much better because this engineer's here fixing all the things. So after a little while has passed, God realizes that there's been a mistake, and he's like, "Oh God, sorry, oh me." He's like, "Sorry, we need to sort this out. We mistakenly sent you an engineer a few months ago, but he's not yours. He's ours. We need him back." And the devil's like, "Well, actually, I feel like we might keep him. He's pretty good. He's made a lot of really positive changes around here. It's quite nice down here now." And God says, no, you can't have him. Don't make me get the lawyer on you. And the devil's like you have any lawyers. So yeah, this was the general vibe. But yeah, engineers are incredible people.
Yeah.
Because they just get stuff fixed.
Yeah. It's because of their ingeniousness.
Here is a problem. I'm going to create a device. And the other thing I was thinking about, this in terms of like begetting things.
Yeah.
Not enough begetting going on as far as I'm concerned, both linguistically and biologically. But it's this. What I'm trying to get at here is, how did anyone ever invent a wheel? It's one of these things that now that it exists, it is impossible to imagine that it ever didn't exist,
right? Because
it's so perfectly designed to do what it does.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a bit like, there are some songs where you listen to them and think, how did a human being write that?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? And it's like this notion that this is discussed in the Discworld too, because it's been 3 or 4 minutes since I've mentioned the Discworld, so I thought I'd better rectify that.
Yeah.
But there's a book where Terry Pratchett talks about particles of inspiration sleeting around the universe.
Oh, nice.
And unfortunately, quite a lot of the time they land on people who have neither the talent nor inclination to do anything about them. But every now and again, and it's this character, Q, who's sort of the Leonardo da Vinci of the Discworld. I've talked about this before. And he's described as like a lightning rod for all of these particles of inspiration just, shooting about. But it is like, there must be inventions, there must be creations and engines that once they've been created, it seems impossible to imagine that there was ever just a space in the universe where they should be.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. Ghost engine. And that's it for another episode of Lexitecture. To get in touch with us about something you heard in this episode, you can email us at words@lexitecture.com. You can also follow along and talk to us at Lexitecture on Facebook and Twitter, and at Lexitecture Podcast on Instagram. For back episodes and the occasional blog post, visit us at lexitecture.com. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Engine.